Welcome to Sunday Springboard with Melanie and Kimberlyn Coaching, where we help women recover from and flourish after stress and trauma. You may be in a situation where you ask yourself, why can't I move on? This may be in regards to a toxic environment that you don't seem to be able to leave, or it could be that you've removed yourself physically from the abuse, but you still don't feel emotionally free. Maybe you're in a situation that you did not choose and you feel stuck, wishing things were like they used to be and unable to move forward and find joy again in your life. Hang on a minute while I share my screen with you. Okay, today we're talking about why can't I move on? Why can't I make changes in my life, especially if I think that I should? These feelings of being stuck, where we wish things were different, these are normal feelings, and there are reasons why you find this difficult. We will discuss the different reasons you feel stuck, and we're going to find some tools to help you break free and move forward into the life you want and deserve. So let's start with the situation you think you might want to change. Maybe you want to look for a new job or move into a new house or across the country. Maybe you're in a relationship or a job relationship that is not optimal. Major changes, but you're not necessarily in a actually abusive or toxic situation. You're just wanting something different than you have right now, but you're having a hard time making the decision. Why is this? Well, you can blame your brain. Remember, we talked about how our brains are made to keep us safe and to be efficient with energy. Our brains make habits all the time because it's more efficient. So we have two parts of our brain that we can kind of compare to a PC. The front part of our brain is called the prefrontal cortex, and this is where we do our executive level thinking, our higher level thinking and planning. This is like the RAM in the computer. It's fast, it's small, it's where you do your major computing, but it doesn't have much room and it uses a lot of energy. It actually uses a lot of glucose, but it takes a lot of energy to use the front part of our brain. This is like the RAM, and what our computer wants to do is whenever it can, it wants to run things out of the RAM back into our hard drive. Our brain wants to do the same thing. Our brain hard drive is called the basal ganglia. You don't have to remember that. You can call it the BG if you want, or you don't even have to worry about that. But our brain tries to move things from the front of our brain to the BG, to the part that stores our memories and habits. Anything we do from habit is faster. You know that. All the things that we do, we don't even think about. Try this. Cross your arms. Now cross them in the opposite direction. Which way was more awkward? If you thought crossing them the second time required more thought, you're right. In fact, when you crossed them the first time, the signal came from a very different place in your brain than it did the second time. As I said, our brains form habits so easily. Anything we do for a few times becomes automatic. Our brains like this because it doesn't have to work so hard when we've got a habit. So we've talked about this before. And if you've missed the previous videos, go to my website, KimberlynCoaching.com. Look on the Springboard tab. All my videos are there. The last 4 of them, I think, were on trauma. And we talked a lot about brain and habits. So what about when we're thinking about making a change? That change is causing us to jump out of our normal, comfortable habits and live out of the front of our brain, which takes a lot more energy, brain power, and it fatigues us quickly. Remember in the previous video, we showed a picture of like a freeway in our brain. And when we have done things over and over for a long amount of time, it ends up in this big, huge rut that's hard to get out of. This is why sometimes the things that are comfortable, even though they're not so bad, or preferable to the things that we don't know. Our habits make up over 45% of what we do every day. Your brain is lazy. It doesn't know the difference between a good habit or a bad habit. It just takes everything you repeatedly think, say, or do and turns it into a habit so it doesn't have to work so hard. When you crossed your arms the first time, the system that stores your memories and your habits drove your actions. The second time you crossed your arms, you had to think about it, and that came from the front of your brain. Any new habit, any new thing that starts up here and then it moves back to the habit part so it can go faster. When we're having to run out of the front of our brain, it's harder, it takes more energy, it takes more brain power, it tires us out, and sometimes we might even come to resent the change that we're contemplating or we're being forced to experience. So this is sometimes, like I said, why we stay in the bad, because it may be bad, but it's comfortable. We know how to deal with it, or we're used to dealing with it. And the new thing that we're thinking of feels risky, it feels fearful, and it's hard to get ourselves out of the rut of the habit that we're so used to. There's other reasons we don't want to make the change. Maybe we're afraid of hurting someone's feelings. It's not until the pain of what we're in right now is worse than the fear of the risk that will make the change. So what can we do when we're contemplating a change? First, get all the information that you need. So many times we just, or at least I don't know, I do, run around and around in your brain without actually knowing what is the actual change I'm contemplating. What actual steps would that take? What actual changes would that be? Get the information that you need before you can even contemplate whether you want to do it or not. Once you have your information, then you can use the pain gain model, which will help you determine the pros and cons of the change. We're going to talk about that in just a minute. And then you can determine whether you want to make that change or not. So here are the pain gain questions. What is it costing you to remain in the situation that you're in right now? Think about all the different things, financially, emotionally, spiritually. Dig deep and figure out what is it costing you to stay where you are. Number 2, what would be the benefits of making the change? Again, think all around the circle, 365. What would be the benefits? Number 3, what are you benefiting from staying in your current situation? What are the good things that keep you there? Maybe the good thing is that you're not having to experience fear. You're experiencing anger, frustration, but maybe not fear. Number 4, what costs have to be paid in order to make the change? Once you look at all 4 of these things, then you can say, what stands out to me? Do I want to do this? Do I want to make the changes? Now, when you're in a relationship that's not beneficial, I'm not talking about abusive, because you're in an abusive situation, you probably just need to leave. And we're going to talk about that in a minute. But if you're in a relationship that's not optimal, you have 5 choices. 1, you can just remain a victim to it. This means you're basically not going to do anything. You're just going to keep letting it go like it goes and just keep on being in the situation. Number 2, you could leave the situation. Number 3, you can just accept it. This is what it is. I'm not going to get upset about it anymore. This is just the way it is. 4, you can try to change it. Now, you can ask for changes, you can try to set boundaries, and the other person then has an option of whether they want to make you happy, whether they want to make the changes that you've asked for. And then once they do it or don't do it, then you can decide, how do you want to respond to that? Are you okay with their response to that? And then 5, you could change your perspective of it. Maybe you could look at the whole thing in a different way, look at the person in a different way, look at yourself in a different way. These are ways you can do it when you're in a situation that's not beneficial. If you're in an abusive situation, what is interesting about this, and sadly about this, is sometimes these are the hardest ones to get out of. People on the outside look at someone in an abusive situation and they say, well, of course, they need to leave. Why can't they say that? Why can't they get out? And yet I know many women that say, I know I need to leave, but I just can't do it. Why is that? If you've gone through all these steps I just talked about and you've decided, yes, I need to leave, that it's costing me too much to stay where I'm at, but I still can't do it. Why is that? Well, you may be experiencing a trauma bond. And the trauma bond is going to need a whole session for us to talk about that. So that's what we're going to talk about next week, next Sunday. Please join us for that. And meanwhile, if you are in a state where you are ready to look at the things we talked about today regarding a change, go ahead and do that. If you need help, use the link at the bottom of the show notes. Schedule a free session with me. I would love to talk with you, visit with you, maybe help you get lined out on which way you want to go. Meanwhile, I hope I've given you some tips today that will help you have a good week. Bye-bye.